Yeah, you've seen what's happening on college campuses. Students praising Hamas, professors calling terror attacks exhilarating, leaders afraid to condemn bloodshed. It's caught many by surprise, but it shouldn't. For years, colleges have funneled donor and taxpayer money to professors and students who champion destruction of economies, of freedoms, even of lives. That model needs to change, and the ugliness of the past week may help accelerate that. Donors who have pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into elite schools are outraged by pathetic statements from weak college presidents. Now they're closing their checkbooks. Professors who are fed up by the anti-Semitism on their campuses are now telling the world, don't hire my students. And companies, including big names like Bank of America, Walmart, Google, and others, are increasingly saying, you don't need a college degree to work here. We'll train you without the baggage. Crisis reveals character. The attack on Israel is showing us the deep-rooted, widespread moral bankruptcy of higher education. Now, the good news is more and more parents, donors, business leaders, educators, and public officials are saying enough is enough. This system is broken, and the time to change it is now. Our next guest is urging firms to not hire his anti-Semitic students. UC Berkeley law professor Stephen Solomon joins us now. Stephen, thank you for being with us on this. I referenced you just a moment ago, and I've heard some of what you've said about your students, and what struck me is this. What you've said is, hey, my students are adults. Treat them like adults. If they're saying things adults shouldn't be saying, they need to bear the consequences.
Absolutely. I support free speech in the university setting, but these are adults and these are law students, and they're going to be representing clients. If they're signing on to statements that say it's okay to murder Jews, it's okay to rape, behead babies, if they're signing on to discriminatory statements, if they think terrorism is okay in Israel, they should not be hired. And frankly, their judgment should be questioned. Would you want this person as your lawyer? And so it's time that the adults stepped in, and frankly, these law students are adults and should be acting like it, and say, you have free speech on campus, but there are consequences. And if you condone hate, if you discriminate against African Americans, for example, you wouldn't hire that person. This is just basic morality, basic hiring practices. And law firms should not be hiring this. And I was happy to see yesterday Davis Polk rescinded 3 offers from 2 students at Harvard and 1 at Columbia who had signed on to these statements, which frankly condoned horrific crimes.
Stephen, I think you're right that especially at law school, these, budding lawyers are going to be held to even a higher ethical standard. So you make a great point there. But I'm wondering, in this environment and being on a campus, if you've received any backlash for the statements that you've made.
Sure. So a couple things. One, I don't think it's a higher moral standard to say that you shouldn't condone murder of innocents. This applies to college students also. Second is the clip that you're showing was Friday at my university, and what they're chanting is intifada, intifada, which means ethnic cleansing. When a Jewish student, I was teaching at the time with a number of my anti-Semitism in the law class, and this is ethnic cleansing. This is saying Jews who have nowhere else to go, frankly, should just be gone. And it's terrible and it's disgusting. And they may have free speech rights, but they should be held accountable. As for me, I'm a tenured law professor. I'll be fine. Anything that happens to me is less than what's happening on both sides in Israel and Palestine. The head of the Berkeley Law Senate went to my dean and asked that I be fired. And my dean told them they don't understand free speech. And I think that's sad for law students, but unfortunately the state of where we are today.
Stephen, I think throughout all of this, you make such a good point that it is free speech, but in turn, we also have the responsibility and ability to make actions, like not hire someone who is openly anti-Semitic. I think with your approach saying, you're not saying get rid of these students or that these discussions shouldn't be happening, but that we should be watching and learning. What are you seeing on your campus? We've been showing some of the videos, but what is the sentiment like, and why are you now standing up and saying that you should not hire some of my students? What is going on today's college campuses?
This has been going on for far too long. There's a small group of students who feel that they can say the worst things about Jewish people, call for their murder and dehumanization, as long as they substitute Zionist for that wording. And our Jewish students are scared. They're despondent. Many of us have family and friends in Israel. Many of us have had friends and family murdered. Or worse, they're hostages and otherwise. And it's really dispiriting to see the moral equivocation going on campuses right now. It shows increasingly that they're divorced from reality. They can't recognize what's right and wrong. And we're not teaching our students to be professionals, particularly in the law school environment, the business school environment. And I think we need to take a hard look at what we're doing in education and the fact that you have to pause to condone murder, to condemn murder. You have to pause to condemn beheading babies. And I think employers have a duty not to hire people who think this is okay. You don't want your law clients to be represented by these people. And I think Davis Polk and Winston Strawn, who both withdrew offers based upon these statements, did the right thing.
Yeah. Professor Stephen Solomon, I mean, you have two options here. You can either see what's happening and decide to leave and make your case that way, or you can do what you've chosen, which is to speak out and to continue teaching on college campuses that need professors like you. So thank you so much for joining us, Professor Stephen Solomon.